Most students of world history can tell you about Genghis Kahn and the Mongol Empire of the 13th century, but few of us know about it today. It's a country that doesn't receive much attention in the news, but some amazing things are happening there. And CBN News senior international correspondent George Thomas, fresh back from Mongolia, Western Mongolia.
That's right.
Tell us about it. What did you find out? What can you tell us about the people?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, this is one of the world's most least densely populated countries in the world. They have about 3 million people. It's a vast nation. Half of them, about 1.5 million, live in the capital city. And right here, we're driving through what they call the steppe of Mongolia. It's the grasslands. I was, that's right, yeah. And there's no roads. No, it's beautiful. A little different
than Virginia Beach.
Oh, of course, absolutely. But, you know, there are more horses. Get this, Gary. There are more horses in Mongolia than humans. There are millions of horses. And, in fact, we went during the time of the year, what they call is the world's biggest horse race in the world, and it takes place. About 200,000 horses take place. But this is what Mongolia looks like. It's vast. Oh my goodness!
Barren.
It's just absolutely barren grassland. The majority, half of the country, 3/4 of the country, live a sort of nomadic lifestyle where they raise horses, sheep.
What faith do the people have there? Do they have any faith?
Yeah, they do. So they typically follow shamanism, some Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. But when you mentioned in your opening monologue here during the 13th century with Genghis Khan, you know, at one point had the largest empire in the world back in the 13th century. And during that time period, shamanism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam were allowed to flourish.
26 years ago, I understand there are only about 10 Christians in the whole country.
Right? Yeah, in the whole country.
And today, what, about 60,000? How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, most of that happened primarily, Gary, because of missionaries, people from the West, America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand. They went to this very remote part of the world, sandwiched between Russia to the, China to the north, Russia to the south. You know, it was a very closed country, an outpost of communism, the former Soviet Empire. And then over the last 26, 27 years, missionaries would go into the country and, you know, they would share the gospel. The church is struggling. I will tell you that. I've got a story that's coming up on CBN News fairly soon. The church is struggling because modernity has hit this country, and the young people are immersed in technology and commercialism.
Many temptations,
consumerism, materialism has distracted, and in some ways distracted the church also.
As it has here in the U.S.
Exactly, right. It's not just in Mongolia. But the church is, you know, it's a first-generation church, if you think about it. You've been to China, as I have. You know, it's a first-generation church. And so the Christians that you see in the country are first-generation. So they don't have anybody's spiritual shoulders to stand on. And so they're learning it as they go. It's a very young church. And they're going through some very difficult times. But they, you know, keep their eyes on the Lord, and they believe that as they continue to sow seeds and as they continue to make the name of Christ famous in their country, that people's hearts will be turned.
And there's some evangelists that you joined, that you were with. They're from Mission Eurasia.
That's right.
Tell me about their children's camps, George, because this is amazing.
Yeah, it's terrific. I mean, so what they want to do is Mission Eurasia, they're based out of Chicago, and, you know, they will hold these camps throughout the year, dozens of them throughout the western part of the country, the remote parts of the country. So they combine sports and other outdoor activities. And then these Russian missionaries, you've got Natasha here, they will introduce young Mongolians to the gospel. In fact, we interviewed young men, young boys and girls who had never heard the story of creation. It was the first time that they had ever heard that this God had created mankind, the creatures of the air and the sea. The desire and the hope and prayer is that these young boys and girls will be the future leaders of the country, and they will carry with them the gospel of Jesus Christ.
You met one young 22-year-old woman who had been reached when she was younger.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about her.
Well, she came to one of these camps, and that's her right there. When she was 7 years old, one of the camp leaders shared the gospel with her. And now she's 22. She just graduated. When I met her a few weeks prior, she had just graduated from Bible school. Wow. And it was in the camp that she was, that God deposited in her heart the Great Commission and said, look, I want you to not only reach your own people with the gospel of Jesus Christ, but I want you to go to the rest of the world. And I want you to be a missionary, a Mongolian missionary. You know,
never
right?
heard of one.
I know, exactly, right? I've never met a Mongolian missionary.
I haven't either. We appreciate you doing
Sure,
these stories,
absolutely.
and I remember the Batwa Pygmies that you did not too long ago.
In Africa.
So keep going to these unreached people groups, doing these stories. We need to hear the good news.
Amen.
The good news today. And
Amen.
so how can people find out more?
Well, they can go to cbnnews.com. They can we've got some terrific pictures from my excursion, my adventure through the steppes of Mongolia. They can go to Mission Eurasia, Orphans Promise. Ministry of CBN here is doing a lot of terrific work in Mongolia, in Russia and China. But go online, and there are so many great ministries like CBN, Orphans Promise, Operation Blessing International, Mission Eurasia that are just doing fantastic work, and these folks are right there on the edge.
Well, thanks for being here today. We look forward to your next report.
Yeah, terrific.